one thing that most distributors want is just this philosophy, which I've always had. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do absolutely everything in my power to deliver that. And if I miss the mark, or if the mark doesn't happen, I'm going to communicate to you a really logical reason on why we didn't get that mark, but the effort and the intent will be there.
Hi, I'm Jerem.
And I'm Barry.
We're from NovoFit, and this is the Mate Spot Me podcast. In this podcast, we're going to speak to experienced and upcoming fitness industry leaders with the goal to give you 2 to 3 gems that you can take away and insert into your business.
G'day, mates. Today we're catching up with my guy, Adam Lewit, a guy who spent years bringing some of the biggest names in global fitness to Australia. We're talking world-class brands, entrepreneurial thinking, and the hard-earned lessons that come from building business with grit, determination, and a serious reputation for always delivering on what you promise.
Before I had kids in business, I would say I was fearless because I didn't give a shit. What am I going to lose? And you just start again and have a crack. But then you have kids and mortgages and responsibilities, and so your decisions have to be more thought through. Prior to that, I was just like, yeah, let's do it.
Whatever.
Whatever. What have I got to lose?
I'll just jump on a plane and go to the US and have a meeting and then fly back.
Yeah, why not? Because you can. Because you don't have that responsibility of kids. And you don't have to think about paying your mortgage. It's just like, what's the worst thing that could happen? It's not worse than where I am now, so let's have a go.
Do you reckon that the version of you running a business before kids and the version of you running a business after kids, like it shifted a lot?
Massively. I've often questioned even myself, if I had to start the business today, would I do it?
Yeah, cool.
Because, effectively I started the business with an $80,000 bank loan, which was secured against my mum's house. And there was no fear. It's like, Mum, I've got this. No, I've got you. You'll get paid back. Whereas now it'd be like, could I put all of that on the line knowing that I've got these kids that rely on me to feed them and nurture them, and could I do it? And I don't know the answer to that. I genuinely don't know the answer to that because I've never been put in that position. Thankfully it's grown to something that's valuable, but at the time there was no fear. So there's less fear versus, I don't know if fear is the right word, but definitely more considerate.
Yeah. Back then, did you think it'd ever get to the situation it is now?
In our Sydney team, there's a guy called Steve Brennan, which we all know in operations, and where I started in the fitness industry was Workout World, which parent company was called Avanti Fitness. And Steve was third in charge there, and I was a franchisee. And I've had this conversation with Steve a lot of times. I used to walk into the Avanti warehouse, which was maybe 2,000 square metres. You think about our business now, we've got like 6,000 square metres of warehousing. But I'd walk into this 2,000 square metres and just go, holy, like this is phenomenal. I could never fathom that this would be something that I'd do. And now we've got Steve working for us in NovoFit. We've built something pretty special, and yeah, definitely way beyond anything I ever thought we would grow, but it's great.
So what year would that have been when you were doing Avanti?
2003, 2004.
And so is home work, right? Home equipment, right?
So they had a commercial division, which was quite small, but predominantly, so I had the franchise for Workout World Castle Hill, and that was purely home use. We were allowed to sell into commercial, but the focus was home use.
Yep.
Yeah.
Avanti was like a place where a lot of people cut their teeth and got into it. Like
Massively.
It's kind of like the
Massively.
Sydney TFG. Like everyone came through TFG here.
Massively.
I didn't do Avanti. I did TFG,
You did TFG, but because Goodsy was Avanti as well, wasn't he?
Dale Lindsay.
Yeah.
Steve Brennan.
Phil?
Nah.
And so back then, the home market there wasn't many gyms in commercial spaces. It was more you train at home. You get a treadmill for home and a
90% of our sales were treadmills for home use for convenience. And what we learnt home use really quickly is you've got 2 customers. You've got the customer that'll buy the $1,000 treadmill. They'll never use that. That'll become a clothesline. Then they'll go get a gym membership, never use that. Then they'll go do park fitness, never do that. Come back to their treadmill and never do that. Or you'd have someone that would come and spend $3,000, $4,000 on a genuine treadmill for their home, also have a membership. They valued their fitness, and they wanted that commercial feel in their home, and they were your two customers.
Yeah. And was there a pivot there where you went, like, how did you get into the commercial space? That's a completely different market, but albeit similar industry.
Yeah. So probably one story. Prior to NovoFit, I was Summit Fitness, and I had a shop in Narellan, which is southwest Sydney, in a fairly industrial area. And at the time, there was 2 Plus fitness gyms, and the owner of Plus was a guy by the name of John Fuller. I didn't know John at the time, but to go from his Northmead gym, which was the first one, to his Camden gym, which was his second one, you had to drive past my shop. And so he continued to drive past my shop. On the flip side, I kept popping into his gym trying to get a meeting with John and kept getting blocked by all these receptionists. And eventually this guy walks into my retail shop one day, doesn't introduce himself as John Fuller. He just walks in and says, "I'm here for an Olympic bar." And this would be 2005. And so, you guys know me. I love to know everything about everything. And so in 2005, I'm like, all right, you want an Olympic bar. What knurling do you want? What material do you want? What bearings do you want in the bar? And he's like, I don't fucking know, mate.
Just give me a bar, mate.
I just want a bar. I'm like, all right, well, what are you going to use the bar for? He's like, bench press. I'm like, well, if you're just going bench press, you just need this kind of bar. And the next thing he walks over to medicine balls. He grabs a medicine ball and he throws it on the ground. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, don't you test a good medicine ball by if it bounces back? I'm like, why do you want a medicine ball to bounce back? What are you using it for? He's like, I don't know. Don't you slam it on the ground and it bounces up? And I'm like, no. But anyway, we're chatting for like 2 hours. We're just chatting like we're mates. Never met this bloke. And he turns around and he goes, oh, by the way, I'm John Fuller. I own the Plus Fitness around the corner. I can't believe you've never been into my gym to come and introduce yourself.
So, mate.
I'm like, mate, I've been there like half a dozen times. I've met Bryony, I've met Tara, I've met Steve, I've met your team, and you've got some good barriers in place. But and so I end up doing a deal with him. I'm like, do you actually need these Olympic bars and stuff? He's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, well, I've just moved into this Camden area, so how about you take that, give me a gym membership, and I'll start training at your gym. And I did that. I started training at his gym. And then he'd be there. So him and I would work out and he'd be doing a bench press and I'd be like, mate, thumbs here, twist here, engage scap, hips through there. And he'd be like, fuck off, just let me go do my bench press. And we built a pretty good friendship. But his 2 gyms that he had were both sports art, wall to wall, just coincidentally. And so, in retail, we had Narellan, Newcastle, Wollongong, Brookvale, Canberra, Mittagong, sort of how many retail shops we had. And
this is Summit, right?
Summit.
Yep.
There's a few sort of sliding door moments. I had a fairly good relationship with a company called Exercise Australia, so Stuart and Tim. They were also in retail, but we weren't in the same demographic areas, so we just sort of helped and chatted and supported. And during the global financial crisis, they went into liquidation. And Tim rang me and he's like, you should look at our business, but if you can't take the whole thing, you should at least look at our commercial division. And their commercial division at that point in time was Sports Art and Hoist. And so I knew of Sports Art because it was in Plus Fitness. And I'd built this really good relationship with John, and John being quite entrepreneurial, I knew his plans were to grow and to open more gyms. And he opened a few more gyms in Seven Hills and used True Fitness here, and he used some Techno Gym over here, and you're sort of growing. And so Exercise Australia going to liquidation, Tim rings me, he's like, you should look at the Sports Art brand. I'm like, yep, again, I'll have a crack.
Yeah.
Why not? I think at the time I had about $40,000 in my bank account in the business. Like the business was doing okay, but certainly not great, and definitely juggling cash flow and cash coming in to pay those bills. And by no right should I have taken on a commercial fitness brand. I did not have.
It was like, no dramas. I'll work it out.
I'll figure it out.
And what happened then? Did you go over and meet them, or?
Yeah. So Tim rings me. He goes, "Are you interested in the Sports Art brand?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll look at anything. Why not?" And I get a call from George from Sports Art.
So he's the owner, right?
No, George would be third in charge.
Okay.
So Paul and Julie are the owners, and then George sort of looks after the international commercial market. And he rang me, and it was like the 21st of December. And he's like, we'd like you to come over to Taiwan, meet our executive team, get to know sports art. And I've kind of gone, yeah, no worries. Well, Christmas is in a few days, so I'll do Christmas with the family. I had a newborn, which was Lockie at the time. He was a bub. And then after Christmas, I'll fly over and I'll come and meet you guys. And they're like, no, we want you here tomorrow. And I was like, okay, all right, no worries. So looked on flights, and again, remembering I've got $40,000 on my bank account, so even the cost of flights, I'm like, what is the cheapest way I can physically get to Taiwan? Fly to Taiwan on the 23rd, meet with them the morning of the 24th to get on a flight back on the 24th to make sure I'm home for Christmas with my bub. But jump into this boardroom with sports art, and massive boardroom, probably 16, Taiwanese there. And I'm sitting there, I would be 26 years old, 27 maybe at the time. And they're speaking, in Chinese. And if you've ever witnessed the Chinese language, it's very aggressive. Yeah. So I'm sitting there doing the spiel on, I'm this young guy, I'm passionate, exercise science degree. This is why I'm in the industry, to do good for the industry. And they've shown me the factory, they've shown me engineering, and I'm blown away. First visit to a genuine factory, so this is all really cool. And giving my spiel on why I should take sports art. And then I sat there for about an hour and just watched them talk in Chinese, and I'm just listening. And then after a while, I'm like, all right, well, I've got to catch my flight. I'm not missing my kids' Christmas. And so I just kind of went, it's clear that I'm not your partner. Like, you're not talking to me, you're not engaging me, the conversation's very aggressive.
You thought it was done. You're like, it's not.
Yeah. This was a great experience. And then they just all started laughing. And they're like, Adam, what we're saying in Chinese is we love your youthfulness, we love your vibrant, we love your enthusiasm, we love you want to do this. And we're looking forward to you bringing the sports art brand to the Australian market and reinvigorating it. And, let's figure out how we, what the containers look like and what shipments look like. And you got to remember, up until this point in time, I'm B2C and I'm working with local Australian wholesalers. So I haven't imported, I haven't bought a container. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I don't know where I'm getting this cash from.
Is your procurement team ready, Adam? Yeah, of course they are.
Yeah, we're ready. We'll figure this out. Yeah. How's your logistics team? Amazing. We'll get this. And so pretty much came back to Australia, and the one thing I did have in retail, for every shop we had a really good either business partner or retail manager. So that enabled me to sort of step out of that for a period in time and just me go out and hunt and do commercial fitness sales. And I was literally going out and doing deals where I'd get the customer to pay this really big deposit to fund this container that I needed to bring over. My margins would be terrible. It made no commercial sense, but it was just about trying to get some volume and some traction into the Australian market on this sports art brand.
How long did it take from that trip? So you come back Christmas Eve or something, Christmas Day, what a whirlwind. When was like the first deal that you got? What was the kind of the first? Can you remember you finally got an order and shit, this is going to start?
Like the first wow one. It's like, wow, that's a big order.
Yeah, so there's a gym in Epping RSL, which was my first sort of wall-to-wall, all cardio, all strength. A guy called Paul George signs a deal, we get it done. It was like $300,000. I was like, holy, and it was me, my father, a bunch of mates doing the installation, like renting trucks, unpacking it, lifting it up. Similar one in Adelaide with Major Fitness, a couple $100,000. I'm flying over to Adelaide. I'm sitting there on the tools, which is I actually met Owen Bowling for the first time at this Major Fitness install. We pretty much were cutting our teeth in this career at the time and sitting there building recumbent bikes and treadmills and getting it done and figuring out how to get it in. And You guys know me; I'm terrible on the tools.
Yeah, if you still own that facility, I'd double check the bikes are assembled. If they're still working, actually, that's pretty good.
All warranties were void. Thankfully, my old man's pretty good at the tools and sort of double checked it. But it was literally calling in schoolmates, whatever, mate. If you've got some hands, help me lift this up, and then just get it done. But I think the trajectory started when Plus Fitness started to franchise, and so built this great relationship with John. John partners with Nigel Miller. Both very different. If you're doing your HBDI score or your personality profile, one's big picture entrepreneurial, one's logical and processes, made this great team and started franchising, and Sports Art was the mandated brand through the relationship with John. And we went from squabbling for a deal here and there to $3 million in sales all of a sudden in Sports Art, and that just grew and grew and grew and grew. And that was the commercial division. That's how commercial fitness started.
Even like for yourself, going from like consumer sales of fitness equipment, be very different process. So different.
So totally
like
different.
that would have been a real learning experience or adjustment.
I think, but what consumer sales did for me is you're dealing with customers all the time.
Yeah.
And so you learn how to communicate with lots of variety of people. And without, I guess, a formal training around sales, it sped up my ability to learn how to talk to different people, because you'll meet someone who will care about what the horsepower of a motor is because they've come from a mechanical, technical background, and the other retailer has told them that they need to worry about the horsepower of a motor. Whereas then you'll meet with the other customer who's all about the human benefit and how it's going to make them feel, and talking to the emotion and the feeling of it is a completely different customer. So going through a retail background where you're dealing with lots of customers every single day, you kind of fine-tune your craft a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But definitely a different, when you come across to commercial fitness, it's about how does this product benefit my business, whereas the consumer is like, how does this product benefit me?
Yeah.
So definitely, different process.
Such a risk. Like when you just, I'm going to fly to Taiwan a couple of days before Christmas, and to be where you are now, like you just think about those humble beginnings. I think that's cool to, see someone willing to take the risk and then be in a position now where we are and where you are that's exciting.
The start of Summit was me.
Yeah.
And when I say me, it was working the shop 9 to 5, and then I had this really dodgy transit van, like really dodgy. And then so I'd sell to you and then close the shop at 5 o'clock. I'd load the transit van, and then from 5 till 8, 9, 10 o'clock, I'd go out and do all my deliveries. Or sometimes I'd get in the van at 6 o'clock in the morning and do a bunch of deliveries. And it probably took about 6 months before I could employ my first part-timer. And that part-timer was just to do the deliveries so I could be in the shop. And, where are we today? 90 employees. The first 6 months was... And so I say that, right? Everyone that comes into our business that does deliveries and does installations, like, I've done that. I'm not asking you to do anything that I have never done. I've probably installed more treadmills than most people in this business still today.
Thank God for that. I don't think we want Jeremy out there delivering treadies.
I'm actually not too bad on the tools.
Oh, yeah. Just asking. Interesting to talk more about the global brands. And so I think the origin story is so fascinating, and that's really cool. We'll keep chatting about that. But the Sports Art piece, there's most of the suppliers in Australia come from overseas. And you've got global suppliers that are manufacturing OEM, but also their own products that are trying, not just in Australia, but in other countries, trusting distributors to represent them in country. And that's probably something I didn't realise existed until I came and joined NovoFit, and seen that there's this whole other market where there's hundreds of really good brands globally that need someone to represent them in a particular country, whether it be Australia or Southeast Asia or South Africa, wherever. And so it's a really interesting version of the industry, I suppose, that some people don't see. How do you find, in your experience, a global manufacturer pick someone to be their distributor, and maybe just focusing on Australia? Like, what are they looking for?
It's kind of funny, like when you look at the size of North America's fitness market and even the European market, the Australian market, we're so small. Like per population, per size of gym, we're small. If you look at any brand's North America sales, Australia probably represents 1% to 2% of that sale. But because Australia is such a sporty, fitness and fashionable market, they put a lot of emphasis on the Australian market being good presence for them. They want presence in Australia. And so I think every manufacturer just wants to see that their brand is best represented. And every time we're negotiating distribution contracts, like there's always a number. They want you to hit that number, and that's a goal. And there's shifts in industries, and the industry will ebb and flow. And sometimes you'll hit that number, sometimes you'll exceed that number, sometimes you'll be below that number. But what they want to see is their brand being best represented. That equipment at some point in time will break down. Are they looking after it? Are they representing my brand? Are they marketing my brand? Are they holding the correct spare parts of my brand? How are they going to service their brand? And so that brand protection is something that's really important.
Really, the custodians of it in your market, aren't you? Like that's you manage the perception of it or around the industry,
Big
like
time.
the marketing of it. It's
And you see that with some of your other, like we'll go to these global events where there'll be a watt bike dealer from different regions and how they position it and pitch it into their market could be so totally different. It's the same product.
yeah.
But the market that they're going after is completely different. And so how you position it in your market is, completely reliant on you and the brands that you want to push and represent it into, and it does impact the success of that brand.
How did you, like early days, you wouldn't have had the volume that we have now, and you wouldn't have the staff that we have and the experience and the showcases. How do you convince them at the time, yeah, trust me, I'll be able to do a good job? Whereas now it'd be easier because of the volume of the business. But back in the day, I'm guessing it would have been pretty hard for you to convince them.
I think one thing that most distributors want is just this philosophy, which I've always had. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do absolutely everything in my power to deliver that. And if I miss the mark, or if the mark doesn't happen, I'm going to communicate to you a really logical reason on why we didn't get that mark, but the effort and the intent will be there. And so I go back to, like, the Australian market will represent 1% to 2% of their global sales. So they just want to know that they've got someone who is invested in the brand, enthusiastic about the brand. And so when I take on a brand, and I'll go back to Watt Bike as an example, we took that on as Summit Fitness. The first thing I did was fly to the UK, spend a week with their sports scientists learning what does the peanut mean, what does the curve mean, what are the markets, how am I going to sell this product not just from a volume but from a quality. Because once I best understand the product, I can understand what markets that can go into. So I've always invested a lot of time to best know the benefits of that product and not just another SKU line in our catalogue.
Yeah, because there's a lot of trust in it too, isn't there? These suppliers want to be, they've got lofty goals as well, and they've got expectations, and there's a lot of trust that is placed on you to execute it. In my experience of being in this side, it tends to be referral based too. Once you deliver on that promise, and so I'm assuming that early days when you've delivered on a promise. And someone asks that supplier from another supplier and says, what was NovoFit or Summit back in the day like? And they'd say, well, actually, Adam delivered on what he said he was going to, or maybe he didn't, but he was bloody having a crack at doing it. He would be a good partner, and then you pick up more contracts and more opportunity.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I started a business when I was 25. So to say I didn't make mistakes would be a lie. There's a lot of mistakes and there's a lot of errors, but I think I've always owned those mistakes and errors, and I've never hidden from them. And so if that treadmill was broken down for a bit too long, or there was that error, or there was that fault, I've never hidden away from it. And I think people, whether it be again a customer or a manufacturer, have always seen that intent. And so what's happened over time as the business has grown, because that intent has always been there to be customer focus or manufacturer focus, we've had more resources and infrastructure to fix that product in a more timely manner, hold more spare parts, do all the right things. But from day one, the intent has always been there.
I think back to not that you're a risky person, but like the willingness to have a crack and take things on, like even Precor back in the day, like I can imagine that would have been a really hard decision at that point in time to go, yeah, we should do this, because there'd be a lot of things that would tell you not to do it, and yet you're like, no, we're going to do it.
When we took on the Precor brand, and Tim Horskin's still in our business group, CEO, finance background, and so I'm dealing with Pete Dugmore at the time and looking at brand and front-facing and sales, and Tim's running the numbers. And so after doing a 2-week due diligence, which is all we had time, his solution was that we can't make money from this brand and that we shouldn't do it.
So you've gone to him and said, hey, and I mean, Tim's a lead at that. You've gone, look at this, and he's gone, we're not going to make money.
Margin's not there. They're selling the product at this price into the market. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. There's $4 million sitting in stock in country. We don't have the cash to support that. It just doesn't make sense. And for me, it was like, I want this brand and I'm going to make it work. And whether the Precor brand generates leads for us to sell some of our other brands which have margin in it that are complementary brands, we'll do that. But we're just going to figure this out. So let's go. And there was definitely times in the first year where I should have listened to Tim. Shit.
The numbers are always all right, but they're not always right, are they? It's like you can, and I mean, I've seen you in action doing that, thinking further ahead than the first 12 months and understanding what the bigger picture is, while still doing it with intent and understanding that we're not making money in that period, but you know what you need to do to get it to a point that you do.
Just such a powerful brand.
Yeah.
And when you looked at our portfolio of products, we had some cool brands and some great brands, but we didn't have a brand with that strength or legacy. And so I knew it elevated our entire business. And at the time, I remember some of our other brands kind of going, Precor's a conflict. I'm not sure you should take it on. And, they do treadmills. We already do treadmills. And for me, I had to sell to the other manufacturers this story of if we take this great brand on, everyone's going to win. And
which they have, right? Like I think without that, if you think about the growth and what's been able to happen, it's everyone's won.
Everyone's won for sure. But the first 12 months with Precor were not fun. It was selling stuff at dirty margins. It was losing money. It was huge warehouse costs on $4 million worth of product. And I remember taking on a brand and going, this brand's going to have some real sophistication behind it. But the reality was they were running their inventory off Excel spreadsheets. And I remember one time in particular, a motor went down with a customer, and we went to our inventory items and we saw on a spreadsheet there was a motor in spare parts. So we went to grab that motor, we opened the box and there's a second-hand motor sitting in there. And I'm expecting this level of sophistication from this brand.
Remember during COVID, we went out to one of the 3PLs and Carl and I were checking stuff off, and it was an absolute dog's breakfast, and different colours and all sorts of
redundant stock, different colour stock, stuff that you just, when you've only got 2 weeks to do a due diligence, you don't get to do, that level. But if you look at it today in our business right now, Precor as a brand has done so well for us, and my hat's off to guys like Dustin Gross and Frank O'Rourke that really transformed that business. And you talk about relationships with factories, which you sort of talked to at the start. Those guys have been in the industry for a long time, and I'd had relationships with them from previous brands. And so when they came across to Precor, the first thing they did was ring me and say, hey, we're taking on Precor. Tell me, warts and all, what's it been like? And I'm like, oh, there's a lot of warts.
So it works back the other way too, right? I think that's the beauty of it is you're being recommended to other suppliers globally to be represented in Australia, but they're coming to you and saying, I might be heading to this brand. What's it like? And I've seen that live. I remember that conversation, and they're massive corporations calling you going, who would you recommend to do this?
Yeah. And so really good conversation. And once I knew Dustin and Frank were going to be at the helm, the brand was going to be okay. We just needed to ride the wave of quality issues and service issues and parts issues, and again, look at the brand today. Like it's a powerhouse again, which is thankfully lots of risk, but we got it to where we want it to be.
I remember when because I was at the Y then, and it really had an impact on NovoFit as a brand. Like it was was everywhere. It was all people were talking about. I've heard Precor's going to NovoFit, and it really did lift the profile of the business for sure.
Yeah, and I think, positive, negative, we took the brand on, we had it for 12 months, and then we hit COVID. So the industry just paused. And there was a lot of negatives, obviously, in COVID, but for us as a business, there was a lot of positives that came out of COVID because it gave us time and the ability to reset and really think about the next strategic plan for our business. And when we took on, again, that Precor brand, we were left with so much redundant stock. But this consumer market went nuts during COVID, and we were able to move on so much dead stock, turn it back into cash, turn it back into quality stock and back into our people, which was really important.
I think one thing that I'd like to move towards is, like, there's a misconception about equipment distribution and supplier industry in its whole. I think the end result that people see in a gym is a beautiful gym that's got nice equipment, that, the fit out looks beautiful, and they're training. And there's maybe a gap where they don't understand, and I'm not talking operators or owners, I'm talking consumer, so like gym members, probably don't appreciate the complexity that is going on behind the scenes. And one of NovoFit's values is designed for complexity. No size fits no one. One size fits no one. Obviously, I'm
sure about that. You sure about that?
They're new values. We're just wrong.
You've run them early.
But it's like being designed for complexity is a different business, completely than the consumer business. And I think there's a misconception that it's easy and that it's not as complicated maybe as what it is. How have you experienced that over the years? Have you seen that you can see that from operators and members, or is there's a lot going on behind the scenes to make it look pretty and a nice finished product?
I think there's a few answers to that, right? Like I've spent a lot of time in China, particularly now. I would have probably visited more than 500 factories. If you go something as simple as a dumbbell, like you can look at this Alibaba picture of a dumbbell, that might be $10. But you go and visit the factory and you'll have one factory where it's like no concrete floor, it's dirt, dust, and you got old mate sitting there with a welder creating a dumbbell for $10. Then you go to the second factory and concrete slab tilt factory, but still old mate with a welder, and it's $10. And then you go to third factory, which is fully automated, robotics, quality control, and it's still $10. And so I can look at a picture on Alibaba and go, cool, I know how to buy this. I know what I'm doing. Versus going to the third factory, which understands I need to be in the Australian market, high level of static, high level of seawater, salt. I need to be nickel plated, or I need chrome to be anti-rust, and it's a bigger lifter, so I need the handle to be this size. And, there's a lot of QC that goes into that. And so in the time that I've been in fitness, people directly importing from China, those gyms never last. They just don't. And it's because the biomechanics are not quite there, or the product breaks down, and the amount of time someone's bought stuff directly in from China and 6 months later and kind of gone, I made a mistake. You look at these big factories like your Core Health and Fitness and Precor, and you've been there. The amount of QC, the amount of engineering, the amount of testing that goes into the launch of a new product, that's where the money and the magic is. And the engineers that sit behind that, that's where the magic is. And, a factory will launch a new Airdyne Assault style of bike, and you and I will go to the factory and go, we want to sell that now. And they're like, no, hang on. It needs to go through this amount of revolutions testing. We need to test the bearings, the brackets, the this, the that. We don't want, liability. We don't want our brand to be represented negatively. We need to make sure the biomechanics are right. So when you go from factory to customer, there's a lot that sits behind that. And going and visiting these factories and talking to the engineers around, how did you come up with a concept? How did you go from engineering design? How does that piece of metal get bent like that? The powder coating process to the shipping goods into country, the spare parts that sit behind that, the logistics that sit behind that. If it does break down, how does that get repaired? Like, there's a lot in that supply chain.
Yeah, I think when you go to these factories, they have like robotic arms or feet and they're smashing the deck of the treadmill, and they do something like 10,000 hours, and they're testing it.
Or they've got a little machine pushing the key.
Yeah.
And like in minus 20 degrees up to 40 degrees, because I might sell it in Russia where it's freezing, or I'll sell it in Australia where it's boiling, and I need this thing to just last, and the electronics to last. And, particularly the Australian market, we actually have a lot of static. So they need to make sure from an electronic that it's covered so that static doesn't ruin your electronics. And all this stuff is tested per region, per country. It's pretty cool.
What does a typical supply visit actually look like?
Yeah, I think, and you've done a few of these with me now, there's definitely a big element of relationship. There's a big element of getting to know the people. One thing that I, do pride myself on is going and visiting Precor and how's your family, how are the kids, how's life, what do you enjoy, building that personal relationship with the people in the factory, because at some point in time I'm going to need to lean on you for help and support. And I don't want to be another number. I want to be someone that you trust, that you have a relationship with. And it goes back to what I said at the start. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And we're going to build a relationship based around similar principles. And so when you go and visit these factories, it's often about, maybe here's a challenge that I'm having in my market right now. In the 100 other markets that you're dealing with, how have you solved this problem? So no longer, in the early days, it was probably very product, because we were looking at picking up more products and picking up more solutions. And it was like, show me your new chest press, show me how this steel's bent, show me the manufacturing, show me the quality control. I don't need to do that anymore because we've got these global reputable brands. That trust is there. So visiting a factory today might be, in your customer service team, how are you building artificial intelligence around that? Tell me something that I'm not doing that you're doing on a global basis that can help me as a brand to elevate what we're doing. And often they'll want to know about the Australian market, because the Australian market is a very resourceful market, and then they'll take that back to other global brands. And so a factory visit is very relationship driven. We can do a lot through Teams these days and have constant communication through email, but still nothing beats that face-to-face, sitting down, over a meal, talking about family and life and where the industry's going, and, maybe some of the challenges they're having in India or China, or, the distributor over here is doing this and that's working phenomenally well. And we kind of go, oh yeah, we could take 1% of that and implement it into the Australian market. But I think, the key where we are in a business today is factory visits are about the relationship.
Yeah, so relationship, connection, trust, rapport. You got to back each other in, deliver on what you say you're going to do.
Big time, because we're representing their brand.
Have you had any funny ones, like any trips where you're like, I remember going to Taiwan or China, and you're sitting in a room and you're eating different meals, and the old chicken feet
Different
and snake and all of these things come out, and you want to be respectful, and there's global economics in the way that you do things, and it is very different than Australia.
Yep.
You got any funny ones that you kind of think back and go, wow, that was an interesting experience?
I'll stick with the PG rating.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Podcast. I think what you've sort of spoken to, right? I've been over there, and there was this one day of the year where what is celebrated is eating duck brain.
Oh, beautiful.
And the person who gets to eat the duck brain is the celebrated guest. And so I get this duck brain, and I'm like, okay, fantastic. Let's have a go. This is delicious. It tasted like nothing, but you do it because, again, you want to respect their culture.
Yeah.
I remember flying over for Ziva, which is our dumbbell brand, and flew over with one of my sales reps at the time, and it was his first trip into China. And so we get into the hotel, and we're sort of waiting and checking in the lobby. So he's gone to the bathroom in the hotel lobby, done his business, and the toilets in Asia, they sort of, they don't swirl. You push flush and the water lifts up, and then it goes down and it sort of sucks it in. And so he's pushed the toilet button and the water's lifted up, and he's panicking, so he just keeps pushing the flush button, thinking that it would reverse it and make it go back down, but it didn't go back down. So the water is going blah, 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 blah. And you see him walking out of the bathroom with this flood of water behind him, looking at me going, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go. And so we're leaving the hotel foyer.
Out of there.
And we come back maybe an hour later and there's all the workers in the hotel with plungers and fixing this toilet.
Must have been a silly Aussie backpacker or something.
Silly Aussie backpacker. And I think in our business, I'll always thank Daniel Wade, because I remember being in the US and getting into a heated discussion with a guy about NFL versus rugby league. And
who's tougher?
Who's tougher? You guys wear pads, you're not that tough. This bloke was massive. He was huge. He was huge. He would have been, I don't know, I'm probably 100 kilos. He'd be 150, 160 kilos, 6'4" monster. And I'm sitting there, this little Aussie getting lippy saying, you know, NFL soft. And the next thing, we're in this bar and he's 10 metres away. He's about to run at me. He's gone, all right, we'll see who's tougher. And thankfully, Daniel Wade sort of stepped in and went, this is not appropriate, guys, and probably saved my life. But
and that's why Adam is still with us today, guys.
Thanks, Wadey.
There's a funny story you've shared with me about flying to the US, I think it was, and having a meeting and then flying back.
I don't know if that was a funny story.
Oh, just like an interesting one, right?
I've done that a few times.
What did you do? You spent a day in the lounge with meetings and then flew back?
Yeah, I've done that a few times. So I remember Core Health and Fitness used to be 2 divisions. And so Star Track was cardio, strength. It was a whole solution. And then they had Nautilus, Stairmaster, Schwinn as another solution as 2 different divisions. And so what they decided to do was merge that into one brand. And they were going to appoint 1 distributor. At the time, there was 2 distributors. And I'd only really ever dealt with the local APAC manager. I didn't have a relationship with the guys out of the US. And so it was sort of a tendering process. They were going to choose 1 distributor. We needed to build a relationship. And so I flew into LAX, met with, I've mentioned his name a few times, Frank O'Rourke, met him at the LAX airport, just at the lounge there, sat there, did a day of meetings. So flew into LA, day of meetings, flight out that night to get back home to continue to run the business. Because again, at that time, I probably had 9 employees. And so everyone's on the tools,
That's
getting
wild.
it done. And even, you know, going from Summit Fitness to NovoFit and meeting Jeff, probably the 3rd or 4th meeting in, flew into Melbourne Airport, met him in the Chairman's Lounge at Melbourne Airport, day of meetings, flew back, went home, getting business done. So that into LA or into Asia day trip turned back around, that was my life, you know. I had it planned so well that I could leave Sydney on a Sunday, be in Sharman, which is where Land America core is, on the Monday, spend the Monday with them in the factory on a flight Tuesday morning and be home by Tuesday night. So Sunday to Tuesday factory visits and just get it done.
Just swing past China.
Past China.
So 20 years, you know, dealing with these brands and global products. Like, what are the characteristics of the best brands that you see, like, and what you look for?
It's a good question.
Thanks, Adam. It's a good one. Oh, that might have been Jerem's, actually.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, bro.
Good question, Jez.
Thank you.
I think, first of all, you got to start with, and we talk this language in our business, like, what is our ecosystem? If we're representing a product to a customer, where does that product sit in our ecosystem? And it has to. It has to complement the other brands. It has to complement what NovoFit's doing. You know, is it high tier? Is it low tier? Is it science-based? Is it technology-based? It's got to add value to our overarching business and to our customer. So it has to fit into our business. And then there is a commercial reality to it where the volume and profit has to be enough. Because if it's not, I can't represent your brand best or well enough. But I think going over and visiting the factory, and I spoke to this earlier, seeing their quality control, seeing their manufacturing process, understanding their vision aligning with our vision, them wanting to have the product represented, you know, by us in the Australian market, and us wanting to represent their brand is obviously really important. But all of those quality control pieces are really important, and to know that there's substance behind the brand to be able to support us.
You got any examples where, like, good product, like, sometimes doesn't work? Like, they've got a great product, but getting it into Australia and it working in Australia just doesn't make sense?
I think, I would say our industry constantly shifts. So people talk about this changing industry, which we are. And so where the industry sits today, which is, fitness into wellness or, functional and high rocks and all this type of stuff is sort of the shift. Strength training is a shift. So I think there's brands where it's not that they're not a good brand, just the timing of that brand hasn't been the right timing. When I started here, our TRX sales were phenomenal. I'd say TRX at the moment is probably on the lower end of our sales because the industry's probably shifted a little bit from that style of training. And will it come back? Potentially it will, based on a shift. And so I don't know if there's been a great product that hasn't worked. I think some of the technology companies can struggle to get the technology licensing in Australia. So you look at right now, Peloton's launching their commercial range and they'll launch it in certain regions and it's just going to take time to come here because of the licensing. But I can't think of a product that hasn't worked here. I can definitely think of brands that have just been waiting for their shift. We carried Peak Pilates for years and years and years and years and years. And, prior to COVID, we would have luckily have sold 200 reformers in a year. And I think what COVID did was shift the industry from being about body, beauty, aesthetics, or weight loss to mental health. So, that's where this wellness industry is really kicked. But Pilates was the gateway into fitness, into wellness. It sort of sat in the middle. And I think the year after COVID, so 2021, we sold 2,000 Pilates reformers. And so our peak sales really escalated and they're at a good volume now. And that was just a timing thing.
So with timing, thinking ahead and looking what's next, what excites you most about the next 5-10 years in the business?
I think when I say excitement, but I also say with caution, I think technology is there to enhance human behaviour and human performance. And so not just in fitness, but in every industry, AI is this buzzword. And we've seen some AI through eGym, which is really cool. And I have no doubt that AI is going to come and lift the standard of the fitness industry and take away function and tasks which will become redundant. But they will enable you to put that resource into a higher functioning purpose. And so what will happen in this next 5 years will be figuring out how we implement AI into our industry. And there's people trying to do it now. I don't think anyone's nailed it. It's a long journey, but that's pretty exciting. I think will be this AI component into fitness, and we're starting to use it in our business from a customer service piece and from a sales piece. But I think how to educate people to use equipment on the gym floor, how to write programs. There's so many components that AI can be used, door access into a gym, understanding my member better. And again, once I understand that member better, I can pour things in to give them a better, experience, which needs a human.
I think that's the coaching element of stuff as well. I think you're right. AI will take away the programming element, which you often hear people within the industry talk about. The program doesn't necessarily matter. You could have the best program, but if someone doesn't know how to follow it, they're not going to get the results. Whereas if you can put more time into that interaction, they're getting a better training experience, they're getting a better social experience, and their service that they're getting at your facilities heaps better.
Well, that's service, right? So what it'll do is it'll drive up the IQ required of that trainer.
Yeah.
Because that trainer can no longer just chuck you on that lat pull down for a few sets or chuck you on that treadmill and go run for it, because I can get that through AI. So I'm really looking for a trainer that's looking at my neutral spine or my movement or my biomechanics and giving me really good quality feedback on how I perform better.
Yep.
What advice would you give someone starting out in the fitness industry today?
Um,
Except, besides buying stuff off NovoFit.
I just think know your bell curve, and probably what I mean by that, you look in the restaurant industry, we've got convenient fast food, you've got full service restaurant. So just know where you want to sit in the market, how you want to attract the clients. So don't be, this cost-effective, fitness model that offers all services, because you can't. It commercially doesn't make sense. And so, I guess what I see a lot is people coming in trying to be everything to everyone, maybe a really strong fitness background, potentially not a great finance background, so not understanding their numbers. So you need to understand your numbers, which definitely was me when I started a business. I didn't understand my numbers, but it's something I've really had to educate myself over time. Understand your numbers and understand who your client's going to be. Because once I understand who my client, who my demographic, what my area is, the equipment is secondary. I produce the equipment and the layout based on all of those other factors. Because if I'm building a functional gym, if I'm building a convenient gym, if I'm building a high service gym, that looks completely different. The equipment layout looks completely different. And the type of member I'm going to attract is going to look completely different based on all of those factors.
Yep.
Price, convenience, service, offering. So just know who, be really focused on the member that you want.
Nice. You might get a bit of background noise. We've had a bit of chainsaw work at the front of the podcast studio, but bear with us. We're wrapping up soon. We've got a couple of fun ones coming your way. So,
Beautiful.
Fun ones.
if you started NovoFit again tomorrow, what would you do differently?
Nothing. Because every mistake that I've made has built resilience and has created challenges and has built the team that I've built. We've had, team members where I've had lots of tears with them, or they've had lots of tears with me around challenges at the business in the time. And again, as long as the attitude is we're trying to do the right thing here, your team members will stick by you and you become resilient together and you build one hell of a resilient business, which I think has come through all the mistakes that we've made. And again, talking to COVID built a lot of resilience in our business. No one could get it perfect because no one could predict what was going to happen. It was new for everyone. But because we had the right attitude, if you look at the outcome of what came after COVID, prior to COVID, for us to recruit new staff, we had to convince people to come. We had to either pay them an overs for salary, we were trying to bring people in, and then a lot of our competitors stood down all staff. And we just did the opposite. We're like, we're going to work through this. We're all going to sacrifice as a team. As an executive, we're going to sacrifice the most and we're going to figure it out. And we did that. And then, guys like yourself, Daniel Wade in our business that were fairly senior executives in other companies kind of went, oh, NovoFit. And so all the mistakes that we made have their own outcome, but it just built one hell of a resourceful business with, good attitude. So I wouldn't change a thing.
Nice. Or maybe, Henry, if you can insert here, start a podcast with Barry and Jeremy far sooner. Kidding.
Maybe sponsor a podcast to give it more funding.
Yeah. Hey.
So there we go.
We can get Jeremy a nicer jumper.
Oh, Jesus.
Got him.
I won't wear this ever again.
All right, rapid fire. Here we go. Favourite country you've visited for business?
I am really looking forward to visiting Alico at the end of this year with you in Sweden. I haven't been there yet. That'd be cool. But Germany for FIBO is always good fun.
Germany. It's awesome, isn't it? Awesome.
Love it.
Favourite gym anywhere in the world?
Exos is my favourite facility in the world, and it's not about product. It's just about their training philosophy. And so they talk about human performance, and human performance for elderly population might be falls prevention. Human performance for someone with cerebral palsy might be getting them to move better, have a better quality of life. Human performance for an elite athlete is to be elite at their sport. So they have this principle of human performance, and then they'll use, physio, doctor, exercise physiology, nutrition, the whole, again, that word of ecosystem of trainers to help that person deliver the best outcome. And I think our industry is moving towards that. We're seeing some cool facilities that have multifaceted doctor's EP, but they've been doing it for years, and they do a great job.
Exos. Is it?
Exos. EXOS.
Jez, what about you, mate? Favourite gym in the world?
I went and trained at Total Fusion Melbourne last night. That was actually very nice.
Nice.
I think in Australia, the rise of the really high-end facilities is cool.
Yeah.
There's some really cool
That's one thing I was going to
facilities
ask you is what do you see like one of the big differences with gyms in Australia and what's starting to be produced versus because you're probably one of the best, most networked people in the industry. The people wouldn't realise.
I would agree with that.
I don't think you'd struggle to find someone that knows more people, to be honest, and it's just been around so many different gyms. So yeah, I'm interested to hear what you think. Like, what's the big thing Australia's doing that other areas in the world aren't?
I say this every time I travel. I come back here and we build the best gyms. And I come back to this logic of, and you go to North America and there's a population of 400 million. And so that term bell curve, like I can build a gym that just caters for that client.
Yeah.
And there's such a big population that can be successful. And then I can go and do, Orange Theory Fitness in the US is so successful because the population over there can sustain that. Orange Theory Fitness was never going to work in the Australian market because of cost of overheads to our population. And so when we build a facility over here, we have to be so resourceful. We have to offer multiple modalities. We have to, whilst I talk about knowing your customer, that customer, doesn't just want one thing. They want Pilates, they want fitness. And so in the US, I can have my Planet Fitness membership and I can have a membership to a boutique over there. And to some degree there is that in Australia, but there's a lot of facilities that just offer it all under one roof and keep that client and do it really well. And so I think we're a very resourceful country and we have to try and capture as many members as possible by delivering a great product.
Yep.
Most underrated trend in fitness?
I don't know if this is underrated, but I'll often talk to that 70-30 rule or 80-20 rule, whichever rule you want. But again, the industry shifts. It's always going to shift. So what we're doing today will look different in 5 years, will look different in 10 years, looked different 5 or 10 years ago. But having really good quality, your basics, cardio, pin, plate is very important. That is just 70%. And then your point of differences are built around that. But on top of that, to add a layer, the most underrated to me is still human customer service and that white glove approach, because why do I go to the gym that I train at? Because of that community. So important to have the basics in place and enough of the basics, but on top of that basics, what you need to really prioritise is that human interaction with a person and that customer service.
It's amazing, isn't it? That's one of the hardest things to do, but should be the easiest.
It needs to happen.
It's probably getting harder with, it gets pretty deep, but society is becoming less social with technology and things as well. So
it just means how how you deliver it shifts.
Yeah.
So you're now delivering that communication through technology, those touch points through technology. We as humans, look at our wellness industry. When we started, even with refined wellness, everybody wanted a 1 or 2 person sauna because they wanted that exclusivity. Now, today, every sauna we're building is a 12-person sauna, 14-person sauna, because humans want human interaction. And so technology is there, again, and I've said this, to take away certain tasks and functions, but we need to be able to enhance that human interaction and still always have that layer and level of human interaction. And that interaction might not be with a staff member, it might be with someone else training. And that technology piece has helped me make it easier to have contact with you as another member.
I think too the pendulum shift, right? There's always this equilibrium that as much as we go towards AI and technology, there's always the swing back to people wanting human connection. You've seen it in COVID, it's like people wanted human connection. Technology is rising, people want human connection. So I think there's a place for both, but the further we go down technology and AI integration, I think the further demand people are going to have opposite to that. to
I
want to
agree.
have that human connection. One prediction for the industry over the next 5 years? One.
I thought you had your hand up because you were going to answer that one for me.
One prediction for the
Prediction
industry.
for the next 5 years. I mean, obviously, we have invested into wellness by partnering with Refined Wellness, and so I think the next 5 years, everything comes through stats and data, which, and the big alarm bell for us was coming out of COVID, and Rory spoke to this. The number one reason someone goes to a fitness facility is no longer aesthetics, it's for mental health and wellness. And so, our job is to kind of go, right, this is where the industry is going. People are going to be focused on mental health, wellness, well-being, and physical is still a big part of that. And so the next 5 years, we're sort of already there. It's like, how do I commercialize wellness into my fitness space? How does wellness make sense? How do I incorporate wellness into my fitness ecosystem so I can still do my strength, still do my cardio pin plate, but how do I bring wellness into that? And so I think we have at least another 5 years of that. But I think through technology and data, the implementation of allied health and doctor services and all those types of things, we've tried. We've never been able to nail it because it's quite detailed, but I think that'll over time start to implement back into fitness as well. A higher IQ level of training.
I like it. You've got one lesson that you can share with, let's say it's Lockie, he's about to start his career, right? What's the one lesson you've learned from your career that you would share with him and say, this is the one thing that you need to know that you've learned?
I think, like from my father, what I learnt was resilience. He, was a very hard worker. And so what I've learnt, again, going back to, there's been some challenges. It's really having an understanding of your values, your vision, your direction, because you're going to have tough times. And in the last 20 years, there have been some tough times. And it's not losing track of your values, your vision, and they're the things that keep moving forward during tough times, but then also surrounding yourself with great people to get through those tough times to help you push those values and vision. And so that would be one answer. And I know you said one, but I'm going to give you two answers because it's sort of a bit of a segue. No one person is amazing at everything. And so bring people into your team that are amazing at what you're not. And so in our business, and you said earlier, Tim is a wizard with the spreadsheets and numbers and finance, and the amount of learning that I've had off Tim off this last 10 years has been phenomenal. I can't do what he does. He can't do what I do. Corey in our operations team, absolute rock star at operations. I could not do that to save my life, nor do I want to. But he loves it, and it gives him so much joy when we do something more efficiently or we, get really good response around our after-sales service. He really, really enjoys that. And so learnings would be, to be resilient because it's going to be tough, and then just surround yourself with the best team possible.
I like that. When people look back at NovoFit in another 20 years, what do you hope the company's legacy will be?
Probably where I started this conversation. NovoFit will be the company that delivered what they said they were going to do. Like, there's lots of layers to that, but that's what we want to be. We said we would deliver this. Here's the values of our business, and we're going to stand by them, and we're going to deliver that.
I like that, Jerem.
That's good.
I like that.
I think it's like you say, it's the intent of it as well. Like that's the key. Like
The journey, right?
Yeah.
You're chasing it the entire time. And certainly I think the way that you show up, you see that every day. So, well, Adam,
Barrington.
it's been amazing. I've really enjoyed the chat, mate. I thought there's some great learnings in there. I thought Jerem was pretty good. He had a couple of great questions. Referred to his beautiful jumper for those watching on at home.
I like to run off the cuff. I get a little lost in your notes.
No, we got to be prepared. That's why it's a good combination. I do all the work and you just look good.
These notes for people behind the scenes were delivered 20 minutes ago. And we kind of went, you know what? Let's not even read them.
Let's roll with it.
Let's
No,
just
but
wing it.
It's been awesome, mate. It's been an exciting journey. I think appreciate you sharing your insights and being so candid about it. The future is bright and we continue to go. So thanks for joining us on Mate Spot Me.
Let's go.
That's the wrap.
Hey,